Welcome guys, I'm Gio here. Hope you're having a great day. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about the subscriptions in Angular. Before we talk about solution, let's talk about the problem, and what you're trying to solve. Angular heavily uses observables. It has HTTP client that uses observable interface, so we can observe the changes and observe the response. It also uses observables in reactive forms where we can watch the changes for given field, their values. So this rxjs, this library and observables are really big part of the Angular. And besides, it helps us to build complex user interactions. We can chain them together, we can combine them, and we can achieve really great results without sacrificing readability. So what are the observables? You can think about the observables as set of changes or stream of values that happen over time, and we can observe these changes and we can react to these changes. So here I have a very simple example. Having this variable num here for this component, it's a very simple component, and we just output this num here. And whenever something changes in this observable, we are just assigning this value to num. So let's look at this in the browser and observe what is going on. So as you see, we are outputting these numbers here, and it is increasing. This is a very primitive example. We can use this subscribe with any observable, so we can observe the changes. It's all good, but what's the problem we're trying to solve? So the thing is, when we are using the observables and when we subscribe to them, we need to unsubscribe at some point in our components, probably when they get destroyed. Why is that? Well, shortly, if we leave the subscriptions, it will cause some memory leaks and slow down application over time. So we need to be able to unsubscribe effectively. Now, how can we unsubscribe? Well, that's very easy. When we subscribe to an observable, this method here, the subscribe, returns a subscription. So we can store it in some variable, this subscription, and later at some point we can unsubscribe. It has unsubscribe method. Now let's demonstrate this. And here, let's add a little check. When the num gets 5, we will unsubscribe. So it will cause this subscription to dispose itself and not continue working. So we unsubscribe. Now let's refresh the page, look at the numbers, and as you see, we got to 5 and then it stopped. Why is that? Well, because we unsubscribed here. So this is how we unsubscribe. And in fact, we can have this subs here. Let it be any for right now, and we can assign this, and in the on destroy method here, when component gets destroyed, we can call subs unsubscribe. Now, what's the problem here? Well, when you're working on a complex applications, you probably are going to have many subscriptions, and managing them can be really painful. So one way to manage them, and one very straightforward way, is to create subscription for each subscribe method, store the subscription into a separate variable, and when on destroy happens, when component gets destroyed, go there and unsubscribe for each subscription. Another way, another potential way to manage the subscriptions is to have some array instead of this, and then we can push into the array new subscriptions, and then write some for each here that goes through each subscription and unsubscribes. But we can do better. Now I'm going to show you my personal preference, how I usually manage subscriptions. So now what's our goal right now? We want to have some container that will take the subscriptions, and when the time comes it will just dispose of them. And we need to have a clean, consistent way of managing subscriptions. So usually the way I do is I'll create some helper class that will help us to manage these subscriptions. So let's go ahead and create new class. I will call it subscriptions container. Now, what do we want to have in this container? First of all, probably we want to have some array where we maintain our subscription, and this has to be private because we will manage them the subscriptions internally. So let's call this subs and let it be an array. Another thing we want to have is effective way to add the new subscriptions. One potential way is to have an add method, but I don't really like this. Instead, we're gonna use some trick here. We're gonna have some setter, and in this setter we will receive subscription. Now, once we receive this subscription with this property, we can go ahead and add this into our subscriptions, and that is good. We want to have a way to just unsubscribe from all these subscriptions. So I'm going to add another method that will help us achieve that. And here we have it. So in this dispose method, we just go over this subscriptions array, and for each subscription we just unsubscribe. Now, how can we use that in our component? Well, it's very easy. It's a simple class, so we can have this variable called subs, and we will create subscriptions container. And in this subscriptions container, now we're gonna use our trick. So we can write subs add, and we can use just this clean assignment syntax here. I think it's much better than the previous one where we had to push into the array and then in the end unsubscribe each of these subscriptions. So in this case, we are just using this property, this add property, and here we have this setter, and in this setter we push every subscription into our subscriptions array. And in the end, when we want to unsubscribe, we will just call the dispose. So let's check all of this in action right now, and let's see we haven't broken anything. Refresh the page, and yeah, as we expect, it is working as it should work. Now let's test our dispose method and write another check like we did previously. And as you see, it has stopped working because we used our dispose method. And in dispose method, we go through our subscriptions and we unsubscribe. Now, what can we do here? Well, we can have as many subscriptions as we want, and we can use this very clean syntax that I really like. Subs add, and then we assign subscription here. And in the end, on destroy method, we will just refer to these subscriptions and call the dispose method. And I really like working it with this way. So, what was the problem? Problem was that in a complex application, we might have many subscriptions, and we probably want to have some clean, consistent way of managing the subscriptions. And the way we solve that, and this is my personal way of managing them, is to have some helper class called subscriptions container on anything you want. And here we basically just use this trick with setter and with this property, and internally we maintain this array to keep the list of subscriptions. And when someone outside called the dispose method, we just go over through each subscriptions and unsubscribe. And how can we use that? Well, we first create this container, and in the on init or in constructor we can add this subscriptions as many as we like with this trick here, and it has a really clean, consistent way of adding new subscriptions. And in the end, when on destroy happens and component is no longer used, we can just call dispose method, and these subscriptions will be disposed. And this way we will avoid some memory leaks, and potentially we save our app from poor performance. And also we have this clean way of managing subscriptions. So that was the trick for this video. This is my personal favorite. If you have your own, please let me know. If you like the video, click the like button, subscribe, and share it with your friends.